Righto, well I'm obviously back, we're obviously back from our backpacking adventure after Sambar Deer, and to say it was a fantastic trip. Well, to me it was not hopefully once in a lifetime, because I plan already to get heading back into there. I know Ben's as keen as mustard to go up and hunt under the bluffs, so I don't think it'll be long before we're back. May not be there, but I can guarantee you we'll be back into it pretty soon. Anyway, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for the support that they've given us throughout this little series. And now I thought I'd take this opportunity to go through some of the gear post-trip, what worked, what didn't work, and what failed. And in all fairness, I'll get it out of the way straight up. Nothing really failed. Some things didn't work as well as I may have hoped, but nothing really let us down. So instead of running one long video over everything, I'm going to break it down into a little mini series of videos as well. And I'm going to start off now, first of all, talking about backpacks and general tents and camping gear and what worked for us, what we took, and like I said, what worked for us. Just because it works for us doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. Now, first of all, if you're going to go on a backpacking trip you're going to need a backpack. Now, our issue was, if I take a full-size pack in, because we need enough gear for a week, what do we use day to day? Well, first of all, I'm going to discuss my old pack. It's been a good pack, and if you can find one of these, you can save yourself a lot of money, because you can spend either side of $1,000 on a really good 70 to 90 litre sort of backpack for a week into the high country or wherever you're going to go. And in all fairness, you're going to need that sort of size. So this is my old pack. It's a Mac pack. They do come in different frame sizes, and this is the most important thing, that you do get the frame to fit your body, your torso, your hips, your shoulders. You need to try it. If it doesn't fit you well, I think you've seen some of our videos, the boys just borrowed a couple of packs, and I think they paid the ultimate price. It really wore them out. I think the key to it is obviously the harness. In this case, this is a size 3, which I'm pretty sure is still the biggest size in the Mac pack range. This will probably suit someone, depending on torso length, probably anywhere from sort of 5'10" to 6 foot plus. Now this isn't a new pack, this is quite old now, but it is just one of the tough original Mac packs. It's seen the test of time, and it served me well. And even though I was sort of carrying 30 plus kilos, once I got it up and on my shoulders and adjusted as I went along, it actually carried quite well. But in all fairness, if you can keep your load under 30 kilos, unless you're a man mountain like Ben, you're going to save your body a lot of stress, because I can tell you, it's all right when you're walking on flat ground and whatnot, but when you start to climb, going across rivers, logs and whatever, you are really going to notice it once you start to increase that weight. So you don't have to go out and spend mega bucks on a pack. A good second-hand option isn't out of the question, and I think I actually paid about $75 for that. And look, I can't remember, I think the Cascade is around the 80 to 90 litre. I mean, it's a fantastic pack. Now we get back to the next issue, as I mentioned earlier on, is, do I want to carry that pack every day? Well, the answer is I could, because when you actually compress it down a little bit, it's still a comfortable and can be used as a normal day pack. But when you're hunting during the day, you're going to need to carry enough water. So in my opinion, carrying a water bladder of some form is imperative, especially in Australia, even in the winter. Now this is my old Camelback Mule. Now the Camelbacks, I still believe to this day, have the best bladders and the best bite valves. Now I've had this for probably about 15 years, and it's still one of my go-to sort of packs. It's only little, you wouldn't want to carry anything out with it, but for a day a day up in the hills, you hardly notice it's got it on. Believe it or not, I didn't buy it for this colour, it just happened to be the one I bought at the time. But in a hunting situation, it's not a bad colour to actually have strapped to your back. Bottom line is, I could put everything I needed in here for the day, including 3 litres of water. And usually, unless you're hunting in the summer, 3 litres of water is probably just about going to do you for a whole day. And obviously water is going to be a big issue when you are away anywhere. So I could strap this on the way in to the side of my main pack, and with it, I didn't take any water in on the way in because we knew we were going to be along a permanent water supply, and not only a permanent water supply, a good water supply. So another little pack is a good option, not imperative, but if you want to keep yourself in prime condition and sort of avoid fatigue, comfort in your packs is going to help go a long way. Now, once you're at your camp location, obviously your tent is going to play a big part in your comfort as well. Now, before we went, myself and Jake decided to look into a couple of new tents. Now, personally, even if it's just for yourself, I think you'd be silly not to buy a 2-person tent. And a good two-person tent is going to be probably around, a hiking tent that is, probably going to be around the 2 kilo mark folded up. Now, that's 2 kilos dry. If they're wet, you can add a bit of weight as well. Now, we looked at tents into sort of medium to high price range, which is probably sort of between the $500 and $1,000 Australian mark. And 3 tents that were on our radar was the, now let me see if I can remember, was the MSR Hubba Hubba, the Mont Moondance 2, and in the end we went for the One Planet Gundi 2. Now, all of these tents would have done the job no problem. What sold me in the end on the Gundi 2 was that it had 4 different options. You could have 2 different weights in the fly and 2 different combinations of the inner. Basically, one had more mesh and one had less mesh openings. Now, the tents worked fine. I think in the end it's about 2.1 kilos, I think, which is a little bit heavier than the others. But what sold me on this over the others was it had a sort of a stronger pole arrangement that I could see. Basically a standard crisscross, and the actual poles seem to be a little bit solider. And this one is the actual top of their range, as in the 4th season. It's got the heavier fly and the thicker walls with the less mesh. The only issue that I did notice, and it took me a couple of days to realise what I had to do to stop it, was in the cold mornings, and we had a fair few well below 0, we were getting condensation on the inside of the tent. But by opening that top little triangle mesh, that sort of rectified that pretty quick. So the tents were fantastic. They'd never really got an ultimate test. Yeah, we did have some ice on them in the mornings, but we were quite sheltered from where we were with them. So we never had any major issues. Now, hopefully you'll be able to hear me here. The wife's just moving a car out. Now, the second thing we had was our flies. Now, we went with the Maroka 30 stalker flies, which were basically just used if and when we got long periods of rain conditions. These were quite, well, they're a little bit bulky, but if one of you take it in with you, someone's got a little bit more room in their pack, that's a bonus. But this was enough for us to shelter under if we actually got some inclement weather, which we were lucky enough we never really got too much of it. Now, I did speak earlier about your sleeping mattresses, and I have mentioned how the 2 that I used were the X-Peds. Well, two that I had as an option were the X-Peds. I ended up going with my down mat, and I still think, even though it was a bigger mat to physically take with me, it was actually fantastic. In the mornings, I woke up as warm as toast, a little bit of warmth under my back, and I'm thinking, it's not that cold outside. Then when I cracked the tent open, I actually literally cracked it open. There was ice on top of it. Jake took in, I'm not sure the exact model, but he took in one of the Sin mats, and I don't think he had any issue with it at all. I think he was as warm as toast, and obviously they pack up smaller. Sleeping bags and liners. Obviously this is not how I take it in, but this is how you should look after a good down sleeping bag when you get back. It compresses down really in a compression bag to about the same size as this, so it's not too bad. But it does take up a fair bit of room in your pack, and you need to allow for that. A good liner. Well, actually, I don't think you need to spend a good amount of money on a liner. I actually had a really good silk one, and it didn't last more than a year. This is just one off eBay. It is actually silk, and it did the job. I was as warm as toast, and actually never felt cold until I actually opened the tent in the mornings. But yeah, so a good down sleeping bag. If you can get one that's got sort of a water treatment or a moisture treatment on the outside, it's not a bad idea, because often even the condensation is enough to keep them damp. And if you get a couple of days that are continually wet and damp, you're going to find that you may not get the best out of them. Now, a couple of other things that we took in while we were there were obviously the chairs, just for comfort, and the two that I talked about early on were the Helinox. That was the Chair Zero, which is the small, and the little Aldi one. Now, Ben and Paul took in the Aldi, and myself and Jake took in the Helinox. Now, in all fairness, none of them failed. They were all good. These are obviously fractionally smaller, fractionally lighter, and if weight was a real issue, I would grab this every time. But again, the Aldi version is a good option, and obviously a lot cheaper option. Now, when you're going in, if you get in some inclement weather, a simple thing is a pack cover. They fold down to nothing and usually have their own little integrated bag. But if it really is raining quite heavy or even steady, it's not a bad idea to buy yourself a good pack cover. The other thing you need, and you're silly if you don't have them, is plenty of dry bags. Separate the important things that need to be kept dry into these, including your clothes, any electronic gear, your sleeping bag. Now, I also took a little down jacket that folded up quite small. Never wore it much, but the times that I actually sat and didn't move for a while, I would put that on every time, and I would keep that in a separate little dry bag. Now, the last thing I'm probably going to talk about in this section will be the walking sticks, walking pole. Again, I'm not an absolute fan, I shouldn't say, I'm not absolutely thinking that I have to have one, but when I did have my pack on, there was a couple of times that I did use it, and actually probably saved me. So yeah, I do like this one, the Z pole, purely because of the way it packs up like so. You can strap it to the side of your pack. You do want to have it handy or ready to go. But in all fairness, none of our gear really failed as far as the camping side of it. I know a few people that have actually had issues with some of the Exped down mats. A few have said that they've actually delaminated or burst on them. One thing I've noticed with them over the years is that, and I say over the years, I've had that one now probably 5 or 6 years, is not to overinflate them. Surprisingly or not, they actually work the best when they're actually soft and sort of look only about 3/4 inflated, but it's personal preference. My little pillow, the little Sea2summit pillow, that worked fine. Again, just getting the inflation right was sort of imperative to comfort. But overall, we didn't have one thing in the general camping gear that actually sort of failed. Well, I didn't anyway. And I'm pretty sure the rest of the boys' gear was quite good as well. So anyway, thanks again for watching the series. Hopefully some of the stuff I'm going to talk about over these next couple of little videos will give you a few tips. And really there's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of things that is not must-haves, but yeah, this is basically my opinion and what worked for us. So stay tuned, and we'll start on the next video.